Sharing your experience with your mental health is not the most easy thing when you're dating. I mean, there's a stigma there. And so in the very beginning, when you don't know someone, you're not going to come off right off the bat and tell them this because they're most likely not aware of what exactly it is. They're just going by probably the worst things they hear. And so anyway, I was dating this guy and didn't tell him. I wanted him to see me for who I am and see that I'm stable and I'm healthy and I live a normal life. But as we were going and dating, I couldn't get myself to do it. And I started researching how do you tell someone about your mental illness? And I think everybody struggled with it. And that's really what woke me up. And I was like, I need to speak out. And I've said many times, if you have a knee injury, you tell everyone, you tell Facebook, you tell your doctor, you tell your dog, and you go to the doctor and you get it fixed. But if you're feeling depressed or you're feeling suicidal, which is not a normal way to feel, if you're feeling super high, your brain isn't working, your brain needs help. And we still have so much trouble speaking about it. I just want to help start that conversation and make it more comfortable for people.
Hey everyone, this is Rod Kate. I'm excited to start season 2 of Rocket Motivation. We're kicking off this season with a guest to talk about her journey of living with being bipolar. This is the first guest we've had on Rocket Motivation to discuss mental illness issues. This is an important topic that we should have addressed in season 1. Let's get right into it.
3, 2, 1.
Anne-Marie Kahlberg, welcome to Rocket Motivation.
Hi Rod, thanks for having me.
All right. Hey, so Anne-Marie, tell us kind of where you are now in your life, where you live, what you do, your age, if you want to tell your age, just kind of catch us up.
I'd love to. So I'm 29. I currently work at Riverview School in Sandwich. I'm from Cape Cod, which I know a lot of people are familiar with, about an hour south of Boston, I'd say. And I've been at Riverview School for about 6 years. I teach in the dorms, teaching social and living skills. It's a school for kids with learning disorders. And I'm actually in the process of becoming a spinning instructor. My school already hired me to work there with the kids teaching spin. And I'm hoping to get hired at one of my favorite studios. And I started a mental health awareness Instagram account. So kind of all three passions are starting to come together for me, which is nice.
All right. Your name on your Instagram account is Babe with Bipolar. How did you come up with the name Babe with Bipolar?
I'm a babe and I'm proud of that. I liked the fact that it was not bipolar babe because especially working in a school with kids with disabilities, we aren't our disability, we aren't our mental illness. That's why it's nice to say I'm a person with bipolar or they're a student with autism.
So tell the listeners, what are you doing to make people aware of your condition and how you deal with being bipolar?
The whole idea behind the Instagram account is I wanted to show that a normal looking girl who, went to college, works a steady job, who knows, has a golden retriever, and wasn't open about this for so long, had all these things going on inside of her and was still healthy and normal, which is not always the case for people who have a mental illness. It's not only about mental illness, it's also about finding self-love and self-growth and your journey and happiness. It's more than just mental health awareness. It's hoping to motivate people to live their best healthy lives.
What kind of things do you write on your Instagram account along when you post your pictures?
The big ones that got a lot of likes were really just me coming out about having a mental illness. So for example, one of the quotes that I started the account with and kind of revealed my mental illness is by Glenn Close. And it's, what mental health needs is more sunlight, more candor, and more unashamed conversation. There's a lot of things about living life to your fullest. And there was a period of time I was numb, going through the motions for about 3 years. And I know so many people are just going through the motions. I know it because it's so easy to just go through the motions. And I woke up from that. And ever since then, I've just been living intentionally every day and taking advantage of, I said, my experiences and what I've gone through. And I try to on that Instagram account, remind people you're living, you have a life, try to make the best of it. I try to be motivational and funny if I can and emotional.
All right. And so I want to make sure the listeners understand about being bipolar. So what is bipolar, if you would explain it?
Yeah, there's a lot of misconception about bipolar. There's 2 different kinds. The kind that I have is you go through periods of depression and you go through periods of either hypomania or mania. Hypomania is a little less severe. I think mania is what will get you hospitalized. And, the depression is the same as what most people know about depression. You feel kind of numb and empty and sad for no reason. you don't have a purpose in life. And that can last months. And then the thing that's different though with bipolar is that you have periods of really high where I explain it like I feel I'm super clear-minded, I'm like intelligent, I have all these ideas, like my mind's so clear and I'm like social, I feel like confident, beautiful, like I can do anything. It's a really almost euphoric feeling. And I definitely feel super creative when I'm like that. But the problem is if you like aren't on top of it, it can turn into like irritability and you snap quicker and you're just doing too many things. It can be dangerous. Like some people think it's like you're happy and you're sad, but it's not that. It's a change in like how you are in life in those moments of being high and low.
All right. So before your diagnosis, then you've seen mental illness and it's been part of your life. If you would tell us a little bit about your family history, focusing on mental illness.
Yes, definitely. When I start my story, I always begin with the fact that I have mental illness on both sides of the family, my mom's and my dad's. On my dad's side, his younger brother actually took his own life. That was extremely hard for my dad. And that was a month before I was born. So my dad went from being this happy guy with like a perfect family to just losing his brother and a month later becoming a dad. If anything, it just made him like a better dad. And he's been here for his family and his kids. And he stood by my mom forever. So that's my dad's side. Then on my mom's side, so she is originally from Ireland. Her mom actually struggled with bipolar. I don't think it was ever diagnosed because, she's older and things were different then. But I know my mom and her brother struggled a bit with my nanny going into the hospital multiple times. And so anyway, after she moved here, she had me and then my sister and another sister. And I think that's when the problem started to appear with my mom. Like she had some postpartum depression. And as the oldest, I was just in tune with everything that was going on around me. Like I was always listening at the door if my parents were having a fight. I don't know. I was always interested in what was going on. And she has a severe case. So she has bipolar with periods of psychosis, which means sometimes like thinks things are happening that aren't. And it can be really scary. She's told me that like she's felt like someone was trying to kill her before. And that kind of thing will definitely put you in the hospital, like because she would just be in a manic state. That's part of the high bipolar where you're go, go, go. And you're thinking about a million things and you have a million ideas. And on top of that, it just turns into full blown mania where it's dangerous. You're trying to protect yourself because you think someone's coming after you.
I want to go back just a little bit, but when you get diagnosed, did you kind of have a feeling that I probably am bipolar, based on your history? I mean, was it almost, I guess it's not really a relief, but it was like, I saw this coming.
Yeah, it was like I saw it coming. And it took me a while to think about this, but I probably experienced an episode of hypomania in college my junior year, but I didn't notice because I was so busy with college. I had 2 jobs. I was like very social. I was just living up my college experience, but I was very social, always in a good mood, always down to do something, managing all of that. And the reason I think it was an episode because my senior year, I was depressed and I didn't know at the time. Like I would have thoughts like my friends don't like me. I don't want to do anything, but that was all before I graduated.
And now this is going to be a big, broad question, but I mean, how has being bipolar affected your life? And when I say that, I mean, like your relationship with your friends, your coworkers. You mentioned you were starting to date again. Kind of go with that question.
Well, for me personally, I've been lucky and I've twisted it to be like a positive thing in ways because that's just how I am with life. Like I try to make the best of things. So for me, the depression's hard. Like I'm not myself and I'm not self-aware when I'm depressed. I don't have these like creative thoughts. I don't have a lot of thoughts at all. I'm kind of just like getting through the day. So I feel like I'm almost not useless during those times, but that's why when I am like this, I'm trying to like put my energy into speaking out for awareness for mental health. I don't know. I'm just taking advantage of the good things.
Okay. You're open about your condition.
Right.
Why is it important for you to be open about your condition?
Sharing your experience with your mental health is not the most easy thing. I mean, there's a stigma there. And so in the very beginning, when you don't know someone, you're not going to come off right off the bat and tell them this because they're most likely not aware of what exactly it is. They're just going by probably the worst things they hear. And so anyway, I was dating this guy and didn't tell him in the very beginning, because like I said, I wanted him to see me for who I am and see that I'm stable and I'm healthy and I'm like, I live a normal life. But as we were going and dating, I like couldn't get myself to do it. And I started researching, like, how do you tell someone about your mental illness? And I think everybody struggled with it. And that's really what woke me up. And I was like, I need to speak out. And I've said many times, if you have a knee injury, you tell everyone, you tell Facebook, you tell your doctor, you tell your dog, and you go to the doctor and you get it fixed. But if you're feeling depressed or like you're feeling suicidal, which is not a normal way to feel, if you're feeling like super high, your brain isn't working. Like your brain needs help. And we still have so much trouble like speaking about it. I just want to help start that conversation and make it more comfortable for people.
Right. And what you say makes all the sense in the world. I mean, the brain is just an organ in your body. Your heart is an organ in your body. But if you have heart disease, there's no stigma. Of course, you tell everybody, God, I've got heart disease. I need to get on some meds. But if you've got a mental illness, it seems completely different. Why do you think there's such a stigma compared to other conditions?
It's because it messes with our behavior. And so, especially with bipolar, it's a really sad cycle because people are scared to get help and talk about it. Things get out of control. And a lot of people with bipolar, they end up getting themselves into trouble, getting arrested, crashing their cars. And then, that doesn't set them up for success. So it's this cycle. And then when they're not successful, they just got arrested, they're depressed again. And it's a horrible cycle and it's not good for anybody. Yeah. I mean, I think people are just embarrassed. I'm so happy I can talk about it because it's always been a passion of mine. And I actually would have spoken out about it back in, with my first episode, but I'm glad I waited because like I've been able to just prove like I can travel, I can really hold a really good job. Like I can have friends, I can have serious relationships, I can laugh, I can cry, and I still have this mental disorder. And now that I'm like 29, it's making it easier for me to talk about it. And I know people have reached out to me. Like it was overwhelming how many people have reached out to me to share their stories. And it's been amazing. So
before you were diagnosed and got on medication, did you ever self-medicate?
Luckily, I've never had a problem with drinking. I've never had a problem with drugs. My mom has struggled with alcohol for my whole life. And because of that, she was on and off meds. And honestly, her drinking problem is probably because she was trying to deal with the mental health issue. So I've seen it firsthand, how easy it is to fall into addiction when you're dealing with mental health. I'm lucky. I think my past and my childhood set me up to like take on this mental illness because I saw my mom, I saw what she went through, and I've been lucky. Like it's not a problem for me, luckily, but I know for so many people it is, and that makes everything more complicated.
Has your bipolar disorder ever frightened you?
So luckily I have been able to manage it in a way that it hasn't frightened me. And I don't think it's frightened my parents or family much, besides like worrying, am I eating? Am I driving safely and all that? But I think seeing what it could do to my mom and seeing that firsthand, like it's scary. That was always scary as a kid. Like I worried about her, and I just hope that people don't have to go through what she did and their kids don't have to, but it's a reality. And I think, like I said, the more we talk about it, the more people are willing to get help, because if they see someone speaking out and showing that it's okay, then it makes them more comfortable and they're not as embarrassed to seek help.
Seeing your mother and you frightened by that, and then knowing that you also have been diagnosed with being bipolar. I mean, are you ever frightened or scared that maybe some of the things that you saw your mother go through that might happen to you? There's
things that I think could trigger me to lose control of it, and that scares me. So I think about that a lot though, because that could happen. I mean, and I also wonder, I would like to have kids. I wonder, am I going to experience postpartum depression and all that? But I do feel like it's something that I could handle. And I mean, I'm a child of someone who had mental illness, and I'm happy the way I turned out. So,
after you got diagnosed and after you told your friends about it, did your friends treat you any differently after you told them that you were bipolar?
I remember telling a few friends, one of mine who's super close to me, and she has a background in psychology, she's a school counselor and all that. And she was just super supportive. She was there for me. I'm very close with my sisters and my brother, and they're my friends. And I told them back then, and they were there to support me. But the thing that's interesting is we still don't even really talk about it that much. It's almost like it's there for me, but with my closest family, we just wouldn't talk about it that much. And my sister would look out for me and whatnot. But I think that just shows like there's so much stigma around it. And then like when it came to boyfriends and things, I would tell them, but most of the guys I dated, we were friends before, they knew me, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But most of my friends cared and were supportive. But it's still just such a shaky topic. Like it's still not brought up in normal conversation.
So Anne Marie, it's kind of like they're ignoring the big elephant in the room.
Definitely. But the thing is, until like I'm experiencing this hypomania, it's kind of like I'm like normal. Like it doesn't have to be brought up when I'm stable, but it's definitely when these bursts of energy come that my family start to jump in and say something. And it's good. They're looking out for me, but I get a little annoyed by it, which isn't fair to them. It's an interesting thing. Like no one fully understands it unless they're experiencing it. Like I have friends now, strangers, like internet friends who are my age, and they're going through something so similar. And it's nice to have that outlet to talk to people about it who truly understand.
Well, you're trying to help them, but you get help in return, which is that's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, it's been nice. It's so weird, like sharing your story, and then you get a reply on a comment that's like, this is my exact experience. Like I shared one about depression, and I don't know why I was so surprised that friend of mine that I used to work with, she said, "This is my life in a post." I didn't know that my experience was so close to someone else's. So it's weird that we kind of all struggle in the same ways, and no one knows that we all do.
So Anne Marie, you've talked about that you work with learning disabled kids. What ages?
There's a high school program and a college program at the school. My students are like 17 through 20, I'd say.
And I don't know if this has ever happened with your kids, but I mean, if they asked you about you being bipolar, what would you tell them?
That's a really good question. So, being professional, we don't share personal information like that. But if they were going to ask me, I would describe it as a lot of them are self-aware that they have disabilities. And I would just say like, this is a disability that I have. It's in my brain. And look at me, like they look up to me, and I could say like, I'm still doing this, like I'm still working and I'm making a difference with you guys. And I think if anything, like it would help them like own their disability and see that like, we're not that different. I struggle too. And I think that would really help them.
So Anne Marie, I mean, what advice would you give to people who are dealing with being bipolar?
I think all we can do is every day, if you're depressed or if you're sad, not even to people with bipolar, all we can do is find some good in each day. I think that's when you're trying to make it through, you're going through hard times. It's so hard to just make it through the day. And I think you just need to do little things that make you happy, like go outside for a walk, do yoga, read a book. Small things that make you happy will get you through the day. And like eventually you will get back onto the right path of like feeling happy again. I just think focusing on yourself and like self-exploration and learning about yourself, I think that's the most important thing you can do, especially if you have bipolar.
Well, I think that advice goes for everybody also. That's just good advice for everyone.
Yeah.
Anne Marie, would you change anything about yourself, even if you could?
I wouldn't. And I talk about that a lot. Yes, there's like ups and downs to having this. And I just think it's important to like take the things you've been through and take the struggles you've been through. And it's hard while you're in them, but use them, get through it, and look back and see how like far you've come, how strong they've made you. And I also say this all the time, like I wouldn't give up my messy life, like the struggles I've been through for anything. Like I wouldn't want an easy life just because I wouldn't be where I am today and I wouldn't be helping people. It just helps to wake up and live each day like to the fullest if you can. It's all like you become happy and it attracts people and attracts the right things.
Yeah, I gotcha. Well, Anne Marie, I think it's been a pleasure having you on. I mean, this to me is a very important show because, like I said at the beginning, this is the first show we've had that has dealt with mental illness. And as far as, Rocket Motivation is dealing with and overcoming adversity. And mental illness there's so many people in the country that deal with mental illness. And that's why I'm so glad you came on, because you're a breath of fresh air, and the way you've handled it and the way you're handling it, just with your complete openness and just to be able to talk about it. And I think that people that listen to this podcast, especially if they are dealing with being bipolar, are going to really, maybe they'll take comfort in you coming out and talking about it.
I really hope so. And when I first announced it on my personal Instagram account, I just couldn't believe how many people reached out to me, basically like thanking me for being authentic and real and honest. And this is what I really thought was interesting. They don't even struggle with bipolar. They struggle with depression or anxiety or any kind of struggle. And they came to me and they just thanked me for opening up about it. And people like have told me they've been getting help and stuff. Like I said, if I can help one person get help, that's all that matters. And I'm going to keep going and just sharing my story if it helps someone else open up about their story.
So, Anne-Marie, if people want to follow you or people that are not already following you, if they're listening to this show and they want to follow you on your social media or get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do it?
Sure. So definitely the first way would be my Instagram. It's Babe with Bipolar, and that's BABEWITHBIPOLAR. I'm also on Facebook. My full name's Anne-Marie, so ANN-MARIE. Last name Kallberg, KALLBERG. And I'm hoping to start writing a blog, so look out for that.
Well, Anne-Marie, thank you so much for coming on Rocket Motivation and telling your story. This has been an incredible experience for me, just listening to you, and I know the listeners are going to love this.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed it too.
Anne-Marie was such a great guest. Her openness about living with being bipolar should give comfort to others dealing with this mental illness. Episode 1 of Season 2 of Rocket Motivation is in the books. Next week's guest is Jajuan Harley. He was a football player that found himself working at Walmart when the Buffalo Bills called. His story of trying to make it to the NFL is incredibly inspiring. You don't want to miss it. Thanks for listening to the show. If you're interested in getting my book, Get Back Up, just go to Amazon and put in Get Back Up and my name, Rod Cate, and it'll pop right up. I would love it if you would subscribe to the podcast and rate and review the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. I would really appreciate it if you'd share it with a friend. I would like as many people to hear my message as possible. And we'll see you next week. Never give up and always get back up.